Welcome to the Multifamily 5, where industry experts provide raw information about how they're achieving success in the current market conditions. And now, your host, Dallas-based real estate broker, Mark Allen.
And welcome to the Multifamily 5. It's your host, Mark Allen, and today I have Peter Selber from Infinity Power Partners. Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. How about yourself?
It's going well. It's Friday, heading into the weekend, so looking forward to some downtime with the family.
I feel you. We're in a similar boat with the little kids, so I know what weekends look like, or our weekends look like.
Well, let's jump into this. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners, maybe your background, experience, and then maybe a little bit about your company as well.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited, and I think it's a great idea. Definitely a differentiator for someone in your space. And once again, just thank you. So, yeah, I'm one of the managing partners of Infinity Power Partners. We are located in Houston. We got an office in Cleveland, Ohio, and we are energy brokers, consultants. We've been referred to as both. Really, we're a boutique firm that started in 2010. My business partner and I met at a previous employer. And at 26, I was 26, he was 30. We said, you know what? Maybe we should try to do this on our own before we had wives and kids. And if we're going to take the risk, now seems like the best time to do it. So we started Infinity Power Partners in November of 2011. And one of the first things we did was, we thought to ourselves, well, we know people, but at some point we are going to sit across the table from someone that knows more about the subject matter than we do. So we brought in an industry veteran named Ron Fort, who helped really legitimize us. So he had 30 years of calling the market and being a risk manager. And, day one out of the gates, he says, can I call Baylor College of Medicine? Can I call IBC Bank? And my business partner and I looked at each other and said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So that really kind of helped legitimize us early on. And, over the years, we started dealing really mainly in real estate, but that's not our, that's not all we focus on, but really that's our bread and butter. And we do some unique things when it comes to the energy management and procurement equation for owners and management companies. And, from 2010 to present day, we've now got a portfolio of upwards of 500,000 units and continuing to grow. So certainly the biggest multifamily energy broker in Texas, if not the country. And it's definitely been a fun ride, and been some ups, been some downs, but things are definitely the trajectory is going in the right direction.
That's awesome. Congrats. Well, all right. Well, unless you've been hiding under a rock, everyone knows that inflation has been a challenge for the economy right now. And along with inflation, utility expenses are going up. So I don't know if you want to start maybe back from 2010 and then talk about the current state of the market, but what's kind of going on historically in the market and then up today?
Yeah. So, I think it's probably most relevant just to speak to the Texas market, since I know that's really your bread and butter. But as I said, we are licensed across the country wherever deregulation, wherever a customer has the opportunity to procure competitive electricity or gas. But, deregulation in Texas began 2001. There was something called price to beat, where basically everyone was switched away from the utility, which in Dallas would have been Encore, and Houston CenterPoint. They were your only option prior to deregulation. And they basically said, hey, every customer, you are going to have to choose a competitive supplier. If not, you're just going to be on this rate, which was price to beat or price to compare. And that's when the fun really began. So, the market was new. Prices, they were obviously cheaper than price to beat. You get to 2010, things are still going relatively well. So from 2010 to essentially the end of 2019, it was a falling market, right? It was offensive, kind of the way we describe it. Owners, management companies, consumers of power could ultimately sign a contract, and they could wait till 2-3 months prior to their next contract expiring, and they weren't shooting themselves in the foot, right? Everyone was capturing savings. So late 2018, early 2019, some inefficient power plants owned by TXU's parent company at the time were shut down permanently. They were coal-fired power plants, and that took some baseload generation off the grid, meaning we knew those power plants would produce electricity when we needed it, and they would help offset when demand increased and supply dwindled. You could rely on plants like that. You started to see more generation be built online, built into ERCOT, and a lot of that was intermittent, right? So solar and wind, which renewables are great, but the issue is they're intermittent, right? Mother Nature has a mind of her own, and if the wind's not going to blow, it's not going to blow. And so, you can't rely on that for stability, right? Purposes. So prices are falling. 2019, we're bullish on the market. Going to 2020, things start to trickle up slowly but surely, and then COVID hits, right? And I think everyone was wondering, is the world ending type moment? And am I going to be in business? And so, everything kind of flatlines, things stay relative, and then all hell breaks loose. February of 2021. I think we've all got some horror story with Uri, but essentially, right, a good portion of the power plants in the state of Texas, pipelines for the transmission of the fuel that they needed to generate power, those froze up. So that left people in a predicament, right? You have people that are trying to stay alive and heat themselves in this ridiculous winter storm, and the grid just can't handle the demand because there's not enough power plants to produce power. And so, it's unfortunate. Back in 2010 or 11, a similar situation happened up in North Texas. Similar conversations were had with the Public Utility Commission and with ERCOT, and ERCOT manages the grid, right? So they're the Electricity Reliability Council of Texas, and so conversations were had, no action was taken. At that time, if you were buying your power on the index market, your average, assuming your billing cycle was day 1 through day 30 or 28, let's call it, you averaged 14 cents a kilowatt hour. Fast forward to February of 21, the average price per kilowatt hour from day 1 to the end of the month, the 28th, was $1.52 a kilowatt hour. So, it's pretty staggering, and it really opened up, put some visibility onto the flaws that we have with the way the market here in ERCOT is set up. So since that time, you've seen additional risk, that has been put in front of customers that, prior to 2019 wasn't really a concern, right? You fix your price, you'd set it and forget it, and everything's good to go. We heard some horror stories that there were some big real estate groups around town that had been on index, and they got staggering bills, right? One group budgeted $700K and got a bill for $15 million. It's a very tough pill to swallow, right? So,
and just sorry to interrupt. When you say on index,
no, you're good.
You're talking just about a variable rate.
So
I'm tracking
two types of variable rates. Variable rate A is going to be, hey, I'm on a true month-to-month rate, and the provider is going to pre-publish that rate the month before, right? So, God forbid you were on a variable rate during Uri. That was actually a blessing, right? Because you were on a pre-published rate, called 14 cents a kilowatt hour, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So, had you been buying your power on what they call LNP, locational marginal pricing, which is power settles at 15-minute increments. So you take the average of every 15-minute increment over your billing period, and that's what your wholesale price of energy is, right? So that's what settled at $1.52 a kilowatt hour. The month before, it may have been 3 cents a kilowatt hour, right? So it was, unless you could just completely shut down, it was an absolute disaster. I think they said that the storm, the estimates were $46 billion worth of destruction and damage and cost to the consumers and the market in ERCOT itself. So that really, I think, opened everyone's eyes, and there were other horror stories where there are 2,000 brokers in Texas, right? That could be someone, electricity brokers, gas brokers. That could be someone that has a relationship with one supplier. It could be, a reputable broker consultant, right? So there really are no barriers to entrance. But, what you saw was people who were told, or customers who were told they were on a fixed price. And unfortunately, they didn't know what they were reading or looking at. And, this fixed price looked like it was below market back in 2019. But in reality, that broker just had an egregious margin or commission built into that rate. And they were actually on an index product, right? So a small portion was fixed, but they were out. They were subject to the volatility. Or a broker consultant passed through certain components that should have been included in a fixed price, to selfishly, so they could increase their commission or margin, and very little visibility or transparency to the client. So, you saw some people that would normally get a $2,000 electricity bill, and something called ancillary services, which should be included in a fixed price, were passed through, and they got an $80,000 bill, right? I mean, for a small business owner, that's a really tough pill to swallow. So yeah. So, now more so than ever, especially with the extreme volatility that we're seeing in the current market, there are a lot of factors that are playing into that. But now more so than ever, owners should very much pay attention to the contracts that they're entering, whether they're dealing directly with a supplier or taking advantage of the services of a reputable broker, consultant, or firm. They definitely should ask questions and make sure that they know what they're signing, because people thought they were safe from apocalyptic type events like Uri, and that just wasn't the case. They just took someone's word for it. So, currently we definitely have some serious issues here in ERCOT. You've seen a big run up in the price of natural gas. The administration, early year and a half ago, hey, stop drilling. We're going to go, we're going green. And now all of a sudden, the unfortunate war in Ukraine, the Russian-Ukraine war, has definitely thrown a kink in things, right? Europe is now wanting to find other ways of energy independence and buy less from Russia, and understandably so. And, that has definitely hurt us over in the States, in the sense of we don't necessarily have excess gas that's just readily available, right? Gas that used to be flared because there was nowhere for it to go is now being exported overseas, via LNG terminals, and more liquid, LNG being liquefied natural gas. More of those will be coming online. You've obviously got issues with weather. You've got severe droughts across the country, and things just keep getting hotter, right? And then you add more people moving to Texas. You add more consumption, more demand to the grid, and then going back to the solar and wind. A lot of our generation, we rely heavily on that. In West Texas, when the wind doesn't blow and you're relying on that wind to provide power, you've got some serious issues. And, I think I mentioned before our call that earlier in June, the average LNP, so those 15-minute interval reads for, it was maybe a Thursday a few weeks back, the average price for that day was $1.12 a kilowatt hour. The month of June, I think, on the index market, so buying in the 15-minute increments is averaging probably 15 cents this month. So you are seeing premiums being placed in fixed prices where they historically had not been placed, right? Historically, premiums were in the summer months, right? That's when we use that's when the demand is the greatest. Well, after events like Winter Storm Uri, well, now you're seeing premiums in the winter months, right? And so in 2017, 18, you're seeing fixed prices in the Dallas area in the mid 3 cent range, right? To high 3 cents. You look at those prices today, a 12-month rate for an immediate start, called an August 1st start, might be 11 cents a kilowatt hour. So, the market's almost more than tripled, right? A 3X, 4X. Now there's a lot of opportunity if, you're a long-term holder. And, as you indicated, with interest rates going up, people who may have had a 3 to 5 year holding period might now say, okay, it's 7 to 10 years, until we pull out of this potential recession. So, being proactive has historically worked very well, meaning, don't just wait for a calendar, a date on the calendar 3 months before your contract expires to start looking at your renewal options. You can sign a contract today that commences 18 months out, right? You're not canceling your current contract. You're just saying, I'm going to put a forward hedge in place. And I think there's value in me executing today because I think prices will continue to go up. So definitely a conversation that you want to have with a trusted advisor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason I'm bringing Peter Selber on today's podcast because, and there's a reason that he has over 500,000 units under contract with different owners and some of the largest owners. So listen to Peter, work with an experienced energy broker like him. Don't go direct. I see that quite often, or with inexperienced brokers. Peter, what about, I mean, just like right now, in the last, month or two, are most of the contracts you're negotiating, are they longer term or are they shorter term? What are you recommending?
I mean, look, it's always based on, with any broker, I would say, they should be asking the right questions, right? Okay, how long do you intend to hold the asset, right? I mean, is your portfolio one property? Is it 30 properties, right? So the strategy is going to differ with each client. Some people are still, we're only comfortable with 12 months and we think the market's going to move lower. And look, I don't have a crystal ball. That could be the case. We're extremely bullish on the market, and most of our clients are executing contracts in the 36 to 60 month range. The reason being that we could go price out. Look, in 2017, 10-year contracts, you were seeing those get done pretty frequently. Well, now if you sign a 10-year contract and let's just say we're wrong, and in 3 years the market does drop, you got 7 years left on that contract and you don't really have much optionality. So there are different methods, to take advantage of, or options. So if you do a 3 to 5 year deal now, okay, if the market drops in year 4, okay, I've got another year left on my contract. I can, do what's called a blend and extend as an example, right? Where I see immediate savings, but I'm blending my current rate with a future rate. I've got 12 months left on my contract. I'm going to add, 2 years. Well, now I've extended the term to a 36-month term, but I blended down my rate and I get to capture those immediate savings. So, clients need to get creative. There are other ways to put money back in their pocket. State sales tax refunds and exemptions for both power and gas. You'd be surprised. A lot of owners don't know that, but the state of Texas, it's a law that any residential consumption for electricity or gas is deemed exempt from paying 6.25%. So you have up to 4 years, or as long as you've owned that asset, to go back and recoup that. And that could be serious money. Now, if you've got like a coin operated laundry machine, that you got to pay taxes on that. But for the most part, opportunities like that exist.
You helped one of my clients. I mean, when you brought that to my attention, I was like, well, let me check utility bills.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I think in just one single year, right, it was like 32,000.
It was a pretty good number. Yeah, it wasn't chump change, to say the least.
Right.
Yeah, that used to be able to buy you maybe like a Honda, but with where we're at today, I'm not sure that will get you a Honda. But
but if you've got several properties, multiply
for sure,
by several.
For sure. Yeah, and if you have an individually metered property, right, where you just pay the common area or for the house meters, and the residents actually have the ability to select their electricity provider. We have seen a very, very big success over here helping our clients implement strategic marketing or ancillary revenue strategies, right? So basically, they sign a contract with the supplier, and the supplier says, "Hey, owner, we'd appreciate if you'd market us, provider X, to your residents." Every time a resident signs up for an electricity plan with provider X, that ownership receives a $65, a $75, an $85, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
One time payment. So, that's something that we're really beefing up. We hired a rock star lady over here named Ashley Wiggin, who that's solely what she focused on with one of the biggest providers in the multifamily space prior to joining us. And her implementing that, our clients have getting quarterly reports showing them top performing properties, underperforming properties, and It's real money. I mean, it can offset, vacant utility costs. I mean, so we're doing something else where we've got a partner with the concierge service, where, they'll offer a kind of a flat bill to residents, and then give a 20%, discount or credit back to the customer after 12 months. If, they projected that the cost was going to be $80 a year and the resident used $60 a year. Right. So, and they'll get a $30 bill credit on their bill. And this partner of ours manages the entire process. When it comes time to renew, they manage it. Right. So, I would, there are a lot of opportunities out there, energy efficiency, water, obviously conservation. There are companies that'll do that sort of stuff. And, 2 years ago, that might not have been super attractive to owners because, hey, look, the market's hot. I'm going to probably, I would anticipated holding the asset for 5 years. Well, guess what? I'm selling it after 30 months, and everyone's getting a 2x right return. So things have changed. The market's changing, and we're very bullish. And the next 5 to 7 years are going to be very interesting in Texas. Yeah.
So you talked about cost increase. Is there anything that an owner can do? If they have a contract that's coming up on a maturity or expiration here in the next six to 12 months, is there anything they can do to be proactive?
Yes. So, a perfect example, we've got a client who's, they're one of the biggest management companies in the country. And, 2019 comes around, 2018, and their contract expires in 2022, right? And we're like, what, guys, we think you should really start looking at a forward contract because we are coming off historic lows. And, they said, okay, talk to us. And so, we ended up executing, I think in early 2019, a forward contract, right? It did, we didn't cancel the current one. Just when the current expired, the new one commenced. And so 2022 rolls around, right? And they're at a 3.8, right? Or 0.038 per kilowatt hour, 3.8 cents, however you want to put it. Mm-hmm. Well, they're at a 3.8. And if they go sign a 12-month today in Houston, you're talking 12 or 13 cents. Now they can leverage that when it comes time to try to bring on, some new management opportunity with, some fee management gig from an owner and say, hey, by the way, you're going to get the best insurance because we're leveraging, our buying power. Oh, by the way, you're going to get to go on a below market, electricity contract. Well, that all adds up. That all helps the cap rate. So being proactive in Texas has historically paid off. And, the volatility on the power curve, right? So there's a curve, gas, there are other components that go into it. I won't bore you, but there's a forward curve, right? So, 10, 20 years out will tell you what people think power prices will be. And so, all that volatility is typically in the immediate 12 months of the power curve. If you're up in 12 months, you've already hedged and you have a position in place. And what you really want to focus on is, okay, what are power prices and gas prices doing 12 months from now? So waiting 3 months before a contract expires, you're really kind of backing yourself into a corner because there's not a whole lot of optionality there, right? You're at the mercy of the market. So, being proactive is key. Transparency is key. Ask your broker or consultant, hey, how are you paid? How are you compensated? And, you'll probably get the answer of, hey, my services are free. The provider pays us. And, they kind of pray to God that you don't ask any more questions. And, I don't know anyone who works for free. And if anyone listening does and they're competent, please send them my way. I mean, but I don't know anyone that does that. So, we're transparent, meaning, yes, we do build a commission or a margin into the rates that we present to our clients, but we tell them what that is, right? Mm-hmm. So, our thought process is if I can't, tell you what my commission is, which might sound crazy, but if I can't tell you how I'm paid, it probably means that, myself, my team, we're making too much money, right? And so we're in it for the long run. And, the suppliers, 90% of the time are going to pay that broker their commission. But the broker's going to determine what that commission is. So, those are all things that we always, transparency is king, and obviously being proactive and, thinking outside the box and getting creative, right? I mean, what we try to do with our clients is, instead of, let's say you got 30 properties. Well, it doesn't really make sense to not leverage that buying power, right? And it's a pain in the butt to, okay, this contract's expiring and this one, right? And just kind of, it's not the way in our eyes to manage your portfolio. And so what we'll do is, we'll do a master contract for our clients, right? Mm-hmm. All the properties may not start initially at the same day, but we'll have staggered start dates. They sign a contract, everything will expire. It's coterminous. So now you've got one start date going forward, and then we'll layer in advantageous contractual language, right? The ability to add or delete properties, an out clause upon a sale without penalty, mutual indemnification across every entity. So that's really helped us grow, streamline the process for our clients, and save them time, which ultimately equates to money saved. So that's not saying that what we're doing is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it definitely has seemed to work, and it's a competitive advantage. And when you throw in the sales tax and the marketing ancillary revenue, we definitely think we're doing something different than the rest, because it's a niche market, right? Multifamily, there's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, you're not going to get that when you negotiate direct, just because it's not your expertise. So work with Peter. But all right, so just kind of high level then, you talked about negotiating master contracts, your ancillary revenue programs, transparency. We talked about, obviously, you being an expert in the space, and because of that, you're one of the largest multifamily energy brokers in Texas, if not the country. Anything else you want to talk about or add there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would just say, if you're talking to a broker, look, not every broker, you may be an owner that you've got the capacity and bandwidth to manage the process yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Upwards of 75 or 80% of consumers, commercial businesses, industrial businesses are utilizing a broker consultant in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it's similar to your business, right? Yeah. I mean, I could be an owner of 100 unit, property, and I could try to list this thing off market, and I could go in circles, all day long, or I can pay an expert such as yourself a fair fee, or, and know that, okay, this is going to be streamlined, and, I'm going to get the best price per unit or per door. And, it's a fair transaction. So, ask the brokerage consultants, I mean, what else can you do besides just give me a best price, best term, right? I mean, you have to have a comfort level with them, and, hey, are the suppliers you're putting me with, what's the risk of them defaulting, right? Filing bankruptcy, because you had a handful file bankruptcy during Uri. And if that happens, am I protected, right? And are you going to help? I mean, is it, hey, let's sign a contract today and I'll hear from you in 30 months, 6 months before the contract expires, right? So, the customer service piece is important. How are you going to help me when I'm looking to acquire, dispose of an asset? I mean, we've worked on some deals together where, I ask some of the people that you're representing to, hey, send me, during DD, send me some bills to look at, and I'll say, hey, by the way, assume this. I don't get paid on that, but that's just the right way to do business. Where I'll say, hey, the seller's paying sales tax, so underwrite your deal $12K less, because you're going to be marked exempt on day one, right? So, just take advantage of experts in whatever field they might be, and make sure that as an owner, there's trust there and transparency, and, you mesh well with whomever you're doing business with. So
that's awesome. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate the time. What is the best way for listeners to reach out, learn more about you or your company, or work with you for your service?
Sure. So I just want to thank you again, obviously, for having me. And it's been fun, and looking forward to get together next time I'm up in Dallas visiting the in-laws. But best way to get in touch would be, you can call my cell phone, 713-419-6828. You can go to our website, www.infinitypowerpartners.com. So INFINITY, the word power, partners with an S.com, or email me at peter@infinitypowerpartners.com. Or don't everyone blow Mark up at the same time. Mark also can pass along my contact info, but if you Google me, I'm pretty sure, Infinity Power Partners will come up. Hopefully nothing bad pops up, but I don't think that'll be the case.
Yeah, I'll put your contact info in the show notes as well. All right. Well, Peter, awesome. Thanks again for your time, and thanks for the update on kind of, I guess, the energy market as a whole. and ERCOT, and some tips for owners to be proactive, some additional opportunities where they can create additional revenue, so on and so forth. Like you said, if you're in Dallas soon, look me up and look forward to connecting.
And Mark, one last thing, just this popped in my head, any listeners that are interested in just a free consultation, if you reach out and, you let me know that, hey, I heard you on Mark's podcast, we'll obviously not only treat you right, but, we'll give you some sort of a commission discount, right? Just because, we value, the relationship with Mark and Gria and think they're a phenomenal firm. And, we'll make sure you're taken care of.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Mark. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.